All right, guys, you know as well as me that semi-final performance against Cossa, not good enough, okay? We only narrowly won both legs, and Western Suburbs is going to be a lot tougher, okay? So while I try and sort out this venue thing, because I have no idea how they're hosting this as well as the Charity Cup, that's BS, okay? Because we're the New Zealand champions. We should be hosting this. But it starts at training, lift your performance, and I'll try and sort this out, or at least give them a peace of mind. Hold on. Get to training. Now, guys, not good enough in the semis. Right.
Hello.
Hi, is this the OFC Champions League decision makers I'm talking to?
Yes, it is.
Cool, okay, yeah. So it's Shaun from Christchurch Technical here. Just wondering, why aren't we hosting the final? Like, because Western Suburbs are only the Central League champions. They're not even, like, that great.
It's done through a random draw.
Luck of the draw, yeah, okay. Boom.
There's a party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 71 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Shaun Does FM with both the All Whites and with Cashmere Technical. And coming up today, it's our third straight Champions League final here with the club from Christchurch at 2031, and this time we take on Western Suburbs, and if that game doesn't go too long, we'll also sneak in a Southern League top of the table clash where we do take on Christchurch United. So if you're looking forward to that, you guys know what to do. Leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. But today we played the semi-finals of this OFC Champions League, took on Cossa of the Solomon Islands over 2 legs. If you missed it, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner, because fair to say, a lot closer than I was expecting it to be over the 2 legs. We won both legs by just a 1 goal, 2-1 away from home, and to be fair, that one took 2 late goals as well before a 3-2 win at home. To be fair, went up quite comfortably early in that game, let in a few goals late, but by that stage, I think the tie was pretty much done. So it does mean we go into this final a little bit devoid of confidence, especially in terms of the OFC Champions League, because Western Suburbs picked up a much more comfortable win, 11-2 over AS Magenta. So you could argue they're actually the form team going into this season's Champions League final, even though they are a team who have never beat us domestically. So hopefully we can get back on track here and pick up the Champions League for the second season in a row, albeit if we're going to lose the Champions League, this is probably the year that we want to do it, because I think next year, that is the year we need to win it to qualify for the 2033 FIFA Club World Cup. But a couple of games we have played off the back of yesterday's episode, both of them were in the Southern League, and thankfully found our form a little bit more in these 2 games heading in to this Champions League final. First up, we travelled away to take on the Dunedin City Royals, and we picked up 3 goals here earlier, double to Al Ghazali and also Christian Benitez. They grabbed one back late, as they do tend to do, the Dunedin City Royals, but thankfully picked up a fairly comfortable 3-1 win, and then backed it up with a 4-0 win over Selwyn United at the GMP. Goals to Cullen Elliott, a double to Gilbert, and Louis Rodriguez also chipped in with 1 to 2 pretty good wins off the back of yesterday's episode. Hopefully that might suggest that we're in a bit better touch going into this Champions League final than we were in yesterday's episode, and certainly that will need to be the case as we do take on Western Suburbs, who are currently on top of the Central League, unbeaten, and have won almost all their games so far in the Champions League this season. They did actually, if we go back and have a look at their schedule, draw the second leg of their quarterfinal against Wani Agu. They're the top team in the Solomon Islands. Cossa actually a little bit worse than them, despite the fact they advanced further in the Champions League. But apart from that, they've been doing very well. And of course, earlier, before the quarterfinals, we did beat them in the Charity Cup. That's quite an important game, actually, as a form reference, because that one was up at Endeavour Park. Also, for some reason, these guys are hosting the Champions League final, even though we won the Chatham Cup and the New Zealand National League last season, and they just won the Central League, I believe. But we did pick up a win there on penalties after that Charity Cup did finish 2-2 after 90 minutes. Hopefully, that's a bit of a psychological advantage that we can carry into this Champions League final. And in terms of injuries, just Ahmed Shusha, who of course torn their ligaments in that first league yesterday, out for 7 weeks, for 3 months, but thankfully lots of cover for us in that left wing role with De Hotman de Villiers and our new first choice left winger in Christian Benitez, who's in some pretty good form, so we should be okay there, and hopefully we can make it back-to-back Champions League titles here as we take on Western Suburbs in the 2031 final. And here are the team sheets for this season's Champions League final. First up, it is the home team. In Western Suburbs, they are going with a 4-3-3. Good players there. Luluwai at the back and Toure in defensive midfield. Of course, scored both penalties early stages of last season's National League final. And we're going with our overall best 11 for this competition. Tsukamoto, the DM. But that's because, of course, Marcus Vinicius cannot be registered for this competition, but hopefully can pick up this win over Western Suburbs despite that very scratchy performance during the course of yesterday's episode in early stages. First highlight is a free kick in our favour. It's very good. It's got a nice fresh squad going in to this final. Pretty heavy rotation to get the job done in that most recent game against Selwyn United. Early chance there and it forces a good save out of the goalkeeper. So we're on the front foot early, unfortunately. I think that was Dirty Radom with a shot from just outside the box. Unfortunately, good save there from the Suburbs goalkeeper in Degenhardt, and then from, I think that was a Victoros header, he pulls out another early stages on the front foot here. Hopefully can get some pay for that soon so they don't find a way back into this game. Thankfully going the opposite way to what that National League Grand Final did last season, where we had to come from 2-0 down because of 2 early penalties, albeit now we are down the other end. Smith will head that one away from a free kick, but unfortunately Western Suburbs do get back on the attack. Van der Sar plays that one forward to Biederbeck. Now Villarreal makes his way down that right-hand side, plays it into Mixer and picks out Biederbeck. Goes back there for Cogman, and that one comes off, I think it was the post, after Hawkins did get a touch on that. So now good chances for both teams early stages, but 0-0 coming up to the 15-minute mark. And we go forward to halfway through the first half. And the next highlight in this game, it is a throw in there to us, but that obviously must have come after we knocked the ball out of play there. Western Suburbs player must have been down because we give the ball straight back to them, but thankfully they then clear it deep and we get it back ourselves. A bit of an interesting start to this highlight, but eventually we find ourselves back in position, albeit that sloppy from Dirty Radom, and Villarreal can make his way down the right-hand side. One of their key players here at Western Suburbs in terms of their attack. Nice ball forward there for Biederbeck, but thankfully that's a good block there from Victoros. Just gets in between him and Josh Hawkins. But Western Suburbs, despite not having a shot on target, are starting to get on the front foot here just a little bit. So far, we're actually getting shots on target, which is good, but obviously not too many with a high XG. And now we make our way up to the 36-minute mark for the next highlight. Another free kick here for the home team in the black with the red socks here in Porirua. Very interesting, as I said, that they did get hosting rights for this final as well as the Charity Cup. That one's probably a bit more mystifying than it is for this game, but Western Suburbs here do keep hold of the ball, play it back there to Degenhardt in goal and plays it out to Mali Luai, a bit of a fringe all-white who Western Suburbs do have, but they're just taking their time here to try and make their way out from the back. Van der Sar tries to play that one forward. They give the ball away, and Villarreal with a shocking tackle on Benitez. This could be a big difference maker late in the first half. It's a straight red card, and you'd hope that will give us a massive advantage for the remainder of this first half, and especially going into the second. That could be a big difference maker. That could be what we need off the back of that scratchy performance in yesterday's episode. And we go into halftime locked up at 0-0. Unfortunately, can't make most of that red card late stages of the first half, but that should be a big difference maker in the second. Christian Benitez was actually on a heavy workload coming into this game, not doing too well on a 6.4, so De Hotman de Villiers can come on for him, and because of that red card, we'll chuck Riley Rogers onto attack outright. Just go a touch more attacking here going into the second half with that one-man advantage against Western Suburbs. And in fact, there's a highlight here immediately from the restart. There you can see that sub going through, and of course, big chance for us here now to pick up the Champions League for a second season in a row off the back of Villarreal and that red card. You can probably call them now the Red Submarine, but a ball over the top near forward. Hotman de Villiers can't quite get a finish on that one, but a bit of a scratchy clearance there from Western Suburbs, and Louis Henrique puts this one far post again, looking for De Hotman de Villiers. Goes back out to Smith, squares this one. Moore gets tugged, but Rogers will put it away. We just put him onto attack, not too sure if it made too much difference for that highlight, but we put it in the back of the net, and that might already be the difference making that red card will do in this second half. They clear that one out there to Xavier Smith. This is that across the face of goal. They're all marking Alex Moore, the Arsenal low knee, but Rogers can poke that one home, and we 1-0 up early in the second half of this final. And very shortly off the back of that goal, we do have another highlight here, and yet again we are on the attack. You'd expect this to be the case now for most of the remainder of this game. Hopefully can grab a cushion goal nice and soon and put this one to bed against the 10 men. It goes out there to Hotman. De Villiers squares that one nicely for Alex Moore, but unfortunately blast that one over the bar. We're certainly now on the front foot against only 10 men, but still only 1-0 in front. Hopefully that will change before we do make our way up towards the hour mark. We don't quite get there, and there's another highlight as we try and make our way here out from the back. The longer that Western Suburbs are only a goal down, that might give them a bit more belief that they can work their way back into this game, as Brown wins that ball back from them. Good tracking back there from De Villiers to get that ball back for us before he sprayed it out to our captain and Louis Enrique down that right hand side. He's certainly a big difference maker for us these days at Kashmir Tech. Nice ball over there from Janssen for De Villiers, but unfortunately indeed he was offside. It doesn't quite put this game to bed as we make our way up to the hour mark, and I think now we're going to take off Alex Moore, and they're going fairly on a 6.4. Al Ghazali to come on for him with a half hour left. And only a couple of minutes on from that second sub that we did make in this game, there's a throw in here, and yet again it is for us. As I said earlier, probably expect all these highlights now to mostly be in our favour against only 10 men. Xavier Smith, who set up that first goal, was on the attack there, briefly plays it back to McGuinness, but gets it back before going back to him yet again now. Try and go a bit more through the middle. Tsukamoto before going out to Rogers, and Louis Enrique, the captain, makes his way inside the box, tries to play that one across the face of goal. Think that was going to be more of a pullback to a midfielder, but a deflection off win finds its way to Mohamed Al Ghazali, only been on the field for a couple of minutes, and he does what Alex Moore couldn't and puts that one in the back of net, a cushion goal to make it 2-0, and hopefully that will now take us a long way towards back-to-back Champions League titles. And we're just about to make our way into the last 15 minutes of this game, and you're getting a highlight here with us on the front foot of thrown near enough to inside of the final third. Smith plays that one over the top. It goes to Janssen, squares it nicely for Al Ghazali, and he's on a hat-trick in the Champions League Final, having come on only about 10 minutes ago, and that is the goal that should put this one to bed. De Villiers plays that back to Smith. Nice ball over the top there for Janssen. Al Ghazali, that shot does take a pretty big deflection, but apparently it was going on target. 3-0 with 15 minutes left. And we're now into the last 10 minutes of this Champions League final. Fair to say that red card there in the first half was a big difference maker, and the discipline continues to be a problem here for Western Suburbs. Tish there brings down Janssen, and Al Ghazali will complete a hat-trick in only 24 minutes. He picks up his 10th goal of the season, now making a case to actually get above Alex Moore as the regular starter, because Alex Moore hasn't been quite as good as you'd expect from a player coming in on loan from Arsenal. But that's 4-0. Al Ghazali with a big impact here in the second half. A couple of players now go down to red hearts. May as well use them as we've got a couple of subs left. Make sure no players get injured late in this one. Elliott at right back, and Victor Ross can go off for Courtney Perkins. We'll just make our way through the remainder of this game, but obviously that red card, a big difference maker for Villarreal, the red submarine there for Western Suburbs. Our last sub here will take off Tsukamoto for young Michael Nielsen, the young Denmark under-20 international, but we're only going to get through 3 minutes of added time. We ran away with that one in the second half. First half, to be fair, was actually pretty close, while they still 11 players on the field, but as I said, that red card to Villarreal did make a big difference. Second half, we're able to really run over the top there of Western Suburbs, and Al Ghazali comes off the bench to pick up a hat-trick, no doubt. He will get player of the match there in that Champions League final, and we pick it up for the second season in a row off the back of a 4-0 win at Western Suburbs. So a bit early for us there as we do pick up the Champions League and back-to-back seasons here at Kashmir Technical, especially as that is what the board do expect. But fair to say, a bit nervous I was going into that game off the back of that semi-final, but obviously the red card was a big difference maker. Even their manager, the American, he knows that was a straight red card for that poor tackle on Christian Benitez. We get only a little bit of money for them, to be fair. I think with the payouts that we're making, that's not very profitable for us, only about 30k we get from that. Certainly the Chatham Cup, a much more profitable competition for us here at Cashmere Technical, but we pick it up for the second time in a row. As I said, next year, the important one to win. Otherwise, I think we could get rather doodly done out of a spot at the Club World Cup. So hopefully we can pick it up for a third time in a row. Otherwise, we might not be making our way to a FIFA tournament for another 4 years, which no doubt will be really important in trying to build up our reputation here at Cashmere Technical. But we pleased the board. Al Ghazali, as I said, obviously coming off the bench to pick up a hat-trick, was the man of the match. But we pick up back-to-back Champions League titles here off the back of that 4-0 win over Western Suburbs. So we accomplished the main goal of today's episode, and going forward a few days off the back of that, now it's time for us to play a top-of-the-table clash in the Southern League. And yet again, it is Christchurch United who we do take on in one of these games so far. I'm pretty sure they're the only team to make their way into the National League alongside us since we've come here to Cashmere Technical and currently looking at the league table. You can already see if we pick up a win in this game, we'll establish a pretty good gap on top of the league with an unbeaten record, and that should take us a pretty long way towards already booking our ticket in the championship phase of the National League. Christchurch United 2 points behind us, but hopefully we can now make that 5 and a few points back to Otago Uni and Nelson Suburbs. If we win this game, that will already be a pretty good gap over those guys, which hopefully we should be able to hold on to. Just quickly looking at what's going on in the other leagues. As you saw before, Western Suburbs, they are on top, also with a perfect record, albeit Wellington Olympic not too far behind, and also have not lost the game. And going up to the Northern League, yet again, Manurewa actually are on top of this, and the only unbeaten team, Auckland City, down in third in this season. They don't have Champions League football to blame as their excuse for their performance. So Auckland City just struggling a little bit in the Northern League. Hopefully that means they might not be a threat come the championship phase of their National League, but they do tend to come right at the right time of the season. Only narrowly missed out on the final last year to Western Suburbs, who of course we've just taken on in that Champions League final. But interesting stuff there in the Northern League. Yet again, Manurewa are on top of that, but Christchurch United, we're pretty familiar with these guys, and of course this game is being played at the GMP semi-professional club. Form so far this season, obviously pretty good with 10 points from 4 games. The draw did come against Nomads, which is interesting. To be fair, up until that most recent game, hadn't been beating teams by too big a margin, but hopefully this is another comfortable win for us, especially as lots of our first team players can back up from that Champions League final, seeing as our next game is in the Chatham Cup and we take on Tianao, who will not be very good. That could have actually been quite an interesting bus trip down to Fiordland, but we're going to thrash them. You'd imagine good chance there to put out a full rotation, but hopefully a chance for us here to go a few points clear on top of the Southern League as we take on Christchurch United. And here are the team sheets for the Southern League top of the table clash. Now we've gone back to our usual National League best 11. So Vinicius, he will start instead of Tsukamoto. And also we've got Rodriguez at left wing because both Benitez and De Hotman de Villiers are on a heavy workload. So that's just the one change to our usual best 11 here at Cashmere Tech for the National League going forward all the rest of the season. And hopefully 3 points here against Christchurch United will take us nicely clear on top of the table. And just like the Champions League final, an early highlight here in this game, which is in our favour, of thrown inside the final third. Captain Louis Enrique puts that far post for Rodriguez, gets ahead on the end of that one. Unfortunately, comes off the woodwork. We get it back into the mix. Rogers plays that back to Dirty Radom, but that shot goes well off target. Some decent chances for us there to take an early lead, but still 0-0. And just shy of the 20-minute mark with the next highlight in this game, Christchurch United there trying to put the ball in the mixer, and thankfully we cleared her out to Lorenzo Janssen. Plays up to Alex Moore and then Rogers. Good chance for us here on the counter-attack. Vinicius plays that back to his fellow Brazilian, and Louis Enrique goes back to Vinicius. Now Dirty Radom yet again with a shot. That one a bit closer to being on target, but still can't quite hit it. So far 7 shots, only 1 on target, so not quite good enough in front of goal, but thankfully still on the attack here with a thrown inside the final third. That though, poor pass from Louis Enrique, but thankfully they clear it, and it falls there to Duty Radom. Now Rodriguez will square that one for Riley Rogers, who will pick up another goal. To be fair, that one quite similar to the first goal he scored in that Champions League final, and we're 1-0 up here at the GMP at the 20-minute mark, thankfully, when that one in the air, I think that was through Victor Ross, and then it gets played over the top there to Rodriguez. Nice pullback there, and Cowan cannot save that effort from Riley Rogers as we take a 1-0 lead. And only 5 minutes on from that opening goal, we are back on the attack here, and Rogers just does his man there on the edge of the box. We now get a bit more central before Vinicius played that one out there. I think that would have been to Rodriguez. In fact, it was Smith, because he gets it back and squares it yet again. Looking for Janssen that time. The shot does get blocked, but good work there from Marcus Vinicius to get us back in position here, and it falls out to Louis Henrique. Now it goes back to Victor Ross, and we start to camp here inside of the Christchurch United half. Louis Henrique back on the ball, squares that one wonderfully, and this time Lorenzo Janssen, with only the goalkeeper in front of him, can sweep that one home into the bottom left corner, and we take a 2-0 lead here just past the halfway mark of this first half, and hopefully this will be a nice comfortable win for us in the Southern League now that we're done with that pesky Champions League, which can sometimes just affect our performances in the Southern League. Thankfully, so far this season, it hasn't quite been the case. We go 2-0 up here, and just shy of the half-hour mark, there is another highlight. Duty Radom on the ball. Poor pass, but fortunately does get it back. Switches that out to Rodriguez out left. To be fair, not doing a bad job so far on a wing he doesn't usually play on. And he'll pick up an assist. Riley Rogers with a double. That shot from a very tight angle, but somehow that beats Cowan, and Christchurch United here have just fallen to pieces off the back of us claiming that opening goal about 10 minutes ago. We pick up 3 in quick succession, and Riley Rogers is on a hat-trick as he makes it 3-0. And the action continues here in our favour just past the half-hour mark here in our corner, and we play it to Rodriguez. Takes on the shot there in some pretty tight space, but does beat Cowan, who, to be fair, not having the best game in goal now for Christchurch United. That one I thought he might have been able to get to, might have got a touch on it, but just couldn't quite keep it out of the back of net. Rodriguez had to make his way from the edge of the box into it. Cowan definitely gets a touch on that one, but still goes into the back of net. That should put this game to bed as we're 4-0 up. And just before we hit half-time in this game, which I think's already over with a 4-0 lead in the first half, a late throw in here in our favour. We play it back to Victor Ross, but thankfully back on the attack here through Marcos Vinicius. Goes there Louis Henrique to Rogers and plays it back to him. Of course, Rogers on a hat-trick, but Alex Moore will finally score a goal. I think that's his first one off the back of those 3 he scored in a Champions League game. Might have been against Venus in the quarterfinals, but finally back in goal scoring action is our Arsenal loanee Louis Henrique. Will pick up the assist. Nice ball there, and to be fair, be pretty hard to miss from that range for a half decent player. We make it 5-0. Late chance here for Christchurch United, but thankfully Simpkin, that header does just go wide. That will be half time, and so far this has been very impressive. 5-0 in front. Riley Rogers on a hat-trick, and also goals to Janssen, Rodriguez, and that late one to Alex Moore. Don't think any changes are needed with that game coming up, that we should be able to win with our rotation team. So we'll tell the boys just keep going as we're 5-0 in front over Christchurch United. And only a few minutes into the second half, looks like the dominance from that first one might continue here as we have a corner here. Try and play that one into the mixer, but unfortunately Victor Ross can't get his head to that because Cowan actually comes out and claims that one off back of, as I said, a pretty rough first half, I think it was there for the Christchurch United goalkeeper. Pumps it deep, a little bit messy at the back there, but eventually Louis Henrique does tidy things up. But then Duty Radom doesn't pick up that ball. Jones will find Baker, who puts it past Hawkins, and Christchurch United will get a goal back, so that will spur them on for the second half. But you'd think it should just be a consolation goal, but that was a weird highlight. Louis Henrique a bit slow to get that ball, and then the pass, Duty Radom should have reacted to it. Baker can get in behind, put that one away, but messy, but Christchurch United get a goal back. And just shy of the hour mark, Christchurch United here are on the attack yet again, so hopefully this isn't the case of what happened in the second leg of that Champions League final in yesterday's episode. Somehow Baker gets in behind yet again, but thankfully we then try and close them down. But Roberto Carlos Gonzalez with a stunning strike. Nothing Hawkins can do about that one. That makes it 5-2. He goes to claim the ball only to realise that Hawkins has already kicked it back to the halfway line. They've still got a half hour to try and turn this around, but certainly going about the right way. That is a very good finish with some help off the underside of the crossbar. 5-2 with a half hour left. And just about to make our way into the last 20 minutes of this game, and Luis Enrique playing well, but is down to a pretty deep red heart, so we're going to make our first sub, Tomislav Barisic, to come on at right back. And only a few minutes off the back of that first sub, now we're about to make our way into the last 15 minutes. It's time to make our final two. A couple of players out there not on green ratings. We'll take off here McGoldrick for Konaku, and also we'll bring on Tsukamoto for Marcos Vinicius. That's all our subs used, still at 5-2 in front. And a couple of minutes on from those last couple of subs that we did make a corner here for Christchurch United, they get a hit on the end of that. Thankfully, comes off the woodwork. So far, the second half actually been dominated here by the away team, which is a bit concerning. A few players now are dropping down to red hearts, maybe backing up a few too many players here from that Champions League final, but thankfully are going to hold on and pick up a win. A little bit frustratingly, Christchurch United have scored with both their shots on target. There does seem to happen an awful lot, despite our dominance with this gegenpress we are using these days in Christchurch on the attack. Yet again, Jones will square that one for Ben McDonald. EI goal. He's a McDonald, doesn't just apply to George, but that closes the gap to a bit of a concerning 5-3 scoreline. Definitely going to pick up a win here, but very sloppy performance in the second half. Going to lose that 3-0. Thankfully, got those 5 in the first half, but just falling asleep there in the second. Christchurch score all their shots on target, which, as I said, a bit of a concern. Both goalkeepers in the end do get poor ratings, but thankfully blew them away in the first half. We'll go 5 points clear now on top of the Southern League off the back of that 5-3 win. So a pretty awful second half for us there in that game against Christchurch United, but thankfully did the damage in that first half to pick up a 5-3 win. And here are the results from all the other games in the National League here on Wednesday, the 14th of May. Auckland City pick up a win, including a goal from one of our former players in Jamie Fletcher. Also worth noting, as we go down a bit further, Ferrymead Bays, they pick up a win in one of our fellow Southern League games. Wellington Olympic, they beat Havelock North to keep their unbeaten record going in the Central League. Manurewa 5-1 over Narua Wahia, so they are certainly still doing quite well in the Northern League. Nomads pick up a win, as do Otago Uni, so those guys will now be sole third in the Southern League. Actually might have joint there Christchurch United in second spot, and Western Suburbs for the first time this season drop points with a draw at Petone. Maybe their formal slump now. We've handed them a defeat in that Champions League final, and here is what the tables do look like. You saw the Northern League before. Going down there is the Central League. Wellington Olympic actually go on top, but to be fair, other teams do have a game in hand, and indeed we are now 5 points clear. Otago Uni and Christchurch United are joint on 10 points. So a pretty good episode for us here at Cashmere Technical. We pick up the Champions League for a second season in a row, albeit a bit of help there from that red submarine card to Villarreal, and also pick up a 5-3 win in a top of the table clash in the Southern League over Christchurch United. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. What we come back for tomorrow, we'll just see what's coming up here at Cashmere Tech. To be fair, all the away games we've already covered off in terms of bus trips and the Southern League. We're pretty dominant in these days, so I think what we might do is actually come back for the next international window with the All Whites. It's a wee way away, but once we get there in June, we take on Thailand and South Korea. To be fair, we beat South Korea late in 2030. Thailand haven't beat those guys yet. That could be quite interesting. The War Elephants actually quite close to us in terms of progress so far in the save, equal 40th on the world rankings, in a pretty similar spot to us in that as well, doing something quite similar to what we're doing there over in Asia, and did pick up a win in the AFC Asian Cup. So that could be quite a big game, and also we may as well show you guys that clash with South Korea, albeit beat those guys not too long ago. Hopefully can do something similar yet again. So we're going to cover the international window in tomorrow's episode, taking on Thailand and South Korea. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.